What is going on, Pats Nation? You guys already know who it is. Patriots Global here, back with another video. And in this one, I want to talk about why the New England Patriots, one, did not re-sign Jakob Johnson. They didn't place any type of tender on Jakob Johnson, which was a very surprising move for this offseason, as the Patriots are one of the only teams left in the NFL who still utilize a fullback. But Jakob Johnson, who now is signed with Josh McDaniels and the Las Vegas Raiders, actually revealed that the Patriots chose not to bring him back because they, and I quote, will no longer have my position on the roster, meaning that the Patriots told Jakob Johnson, hey, you might want to go sign somewhere else when you get an offer because we're not using a fullback anymore. Now, this is exactly what Jakob Johnson had to say in an interview where he did reveal why he signed with the Raiders and not the Patriots. He said, and I quote, "The Patriots have informed me that they will no longer need my services for next season simply because they will no longer have my position on the roster." Now, the Patriots have really utilized Jakob Johnson, who originally came to New England via the NFL International Pathway Program, meaning that he came all the way as a native from Germany. He was an exempted player on the Patriots' 90-man roster, so essentially he was the 91st guy on the roster. He originally placed himself on the practice squad because at that time the Patriots still had James Devlin. Now, after James Devlin suffered that season-ending neck injury, that is when the Patriots decided to bring up Jakob Johnson, and then we all know that story. James Devlin just decided to retire after that injury. He never came back to football, and the Patriots started to roll with Jakob Johnson as their fullback ever since then. But for the longest time, for as long as I can remember, the Patriots have used a traditional fullback. Whether we're going to talk about James Devlin, whether we're going to talk about Jakob Johnson, a fullback has been a pivotal piece year after year to the Patriots offense. I mean, let's remember when James Devlin went down with an injury, Jakob Johnson ended up going down with an injury that same year. The Patriots had to bring linebacker Landon Roberts from defense and play him at fullback because of just how much they utilized the position. And when we go all the way back to 2012, when James Devlin originally started his career in the NFL as a fullback with New England, I mean, this team's been utilizing that fullback in this offensive scheme for at least 10 years. So it's going to be very different to not necessarily see a designated man designed to that spot. Now, Jakob Johnson served primarily as a lead blocker in the running game and did play a little bit on special teams also, but he had pretty limited value when it came to everywhere else. He got utilized a little bit more in the passing game than James Devlin did. James Devlin was definitely utilized a lot more with the ball in his hand in the running game than Jakob Johnson was. And I will say, it did look like the Patriots did want a fullback that had more utility within himself, a guy that can be like a Kyle Juszczyk with the 49ers, not a guy that's just going to be a lead blocking guy that comes in with certain packages, but a guy that you can give the ball to and can actually make plays in the running game, or a guy that you can send out wide or send up straight through the middle and can make an impact within the passing game. Obviously, Jakob Johnson, James Devlin, two guys that never really fit in that category. They were more guys that their purpose was blocking. I mean, in the 3 seasons that Jakob Johnson was with the Patriots, he touched the football just a total of 13 times for a total of 83 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, this is what Jakob Johnson had to say on joining the Raiders and why he essentially decided to. He said, and I quote, "The call came that there was interest, and with Coach McDaniels and an offense I've played in and a bunch of coaches who know me from the Patriots, that's probably the best situation." You definitely can't get mad at him. It sucked to see him go originally, but at the end of the day, it's not like he left the Patriots for a better option or because he didn't want to be here. You know, Belichick, this coaching staff, they gave him the respect to say, hey, we're not going to be utilizing that position anymore. If you get an offer for somewhere else, make sure that you go ahead and you take it because obviously with us not needing your services, we will not be resigning you. Now, with that being said, although the Patriots don't have a traditional and classic all-time fullback like we have seen for several years, doesn't mean that they're not going to have a guy that still plays that fullback position. I think what the Patriots are kind of trying to do here is, like I said earlier, kind of try to go with a more hybrid fullback. Again, more like a Kyle Juszczyk type guy, a utility type guy. But also kill 2 birds with 1 stone and maybe utilize the fullback not just in the fullback position, but use him all over the offense. And what I mean by this is you have multiple guys on your roster that can play as, an inline back, can be a lead back for your team, or simply can just fill in at fullback for those limited packages that you do decide to use one. Two guys that stand out to me would be Jonnu Smith and Dalton Keene. Now, Dalton Keene was still kept around this team. He is still here for a reason, despite having injuries this past year and not playing. Obviously, the Patriots drafted him as a tight end. He definitely could fit into that diverse utility role if the Patriots decided to use him as a fullback. But if the Patriots kind of wanted to kill two birds with one stone, have a guy who can play fullback but play maybe H-back, play at tight end, then they could use somebody like Jonnu Smith. Therefore, you only have to use one roster spot rather than wasting multiple roster spots, meaning, hey, instead of using a fullback, now you have Jonnu Smith filling in there, and now you can add another offensive lineman or cornerback to your team where you need it most. I definitely don't expect the Patriots to fully get rid of the fullback position in the sense of they're never going to use a fullback in certain packages. You're just not going to have your traditional all-time fullback like we have had with Jakob Johnson or James Devlin, where that is their only and specific role. The Patriots did say that they had a lot of ideas for Jonnu Smith, that they really plan to utilize him in his second year with this team in 2022, and maybe not having a traditional fullback is going to be one of the ways that they get Jonnu Smith more on the field and get him more opportunities with not having Jakob Johnson taking over that role. But what are your guys' thoughts on this? Let me know in the comment section below. Remember to leave a big like on this video and subscribe to the channel for all of your New England Patriots news. Like always, I really appreciate you guys for watching, and like always, go Pats.